Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists, and in this case doing a video regarding the importance of firearms, not only for life but also for liberty. You know the phrase, guns are for life and liberty, and we often talk about the life aspect in terms of guns for self-defense. This is a preparedness channel. We talk about survivalism, about being ready in case you need to defend yourself, you need to defend your family, or even your community, right? In certain events where you see violence spreading, and this is something that you often see covered in different channels. Now, what you're seeing right now in Ukraine is the liberty aspect, okay? It goes beyond the life thing. So this is usually why you often hear that the recommendation, get yourself a handgun, get yourself a rifle, and you actually need both, right? I think that is the minimum requirements as to have that area covered. And of course, once you have these two, instead of buying 10, 20, or 50 more guns, get some actual training and get some of the other stuff you'll probably end up needing if you're called upon to use that thing one day for liberty. We are seeing all of this right now. By the way, guys, all of that is quite a bit covered in Street Survival Skills, which is my latest book dedicated mostly to this sort of stuff in terms of practical survival. Most of the book, I guess, is regarding self-defense and this sort of thing. Now, we understand this, right? I guess we all do, that an armed society is a polite society. Rather than an armed society is a polite society, an armed society is really a free society. And the more armed you are, the more free you usually are as well. If you look at the statistics, and this goes, just destroys all the anti-gun argument. And I don't understand why it's not brought up more often, but the reality is that the more armed a society is, in general, and by a wide margin, the more armed society is, the more free it is, and the better quality of life it enjoys. Look at the countries that are the least armed countries in the world, and you're going to be looking at horrible places no one really wants to live in. You're talking about Cuba, you're talking about North Korea. The least armed countries are usually the least free ones, and the ones that have a far worse quality of life. Now, the most armed countries in the world, you're thinking of the United States, sure, you're thinking of some of the European countries that have the best quality of life. Usually they are the most armed. Nordic countries, Finland, if you look at Switzerland, even looking at Germany, is quite armed. Even France is one of the most armed countries in the world. And of course, every country has its issues, and there's no perfect society. But this is pretty much linear in terms of the more armed a society is, the better it usually is for its people. Okay, so yes, absolutely, you need both. You need the handgun and you need the rifle. And I don't want to make the video just about guns, but I guess at this point we basically understand that looking at guns, there is something to be said about common models, and especially models that have been proven. Looking at specifically Glock for handguns, I think it's quite clear. In terms of rifle, the AR is maybe one of the most prolific platforms, and it's going to be depending specifically on where you are. It's not my favorite firearm design, but I accept that it's so prolific that the advantage is to be considered. Look at it in terms of also how much are you going to be investing in this? Are you going to be buying a crappy gun that may or may not work? If you have the funds for it, instead of having 10, 12 so-so guns, buy something that's of good quality. Same thing for the optic. I know that sometimes these things are expensive, but the advantage, if you ever end up using it, is significant. The peace of mind, the thing working when you need it, when your life is on the line, I think that goes way beyond the price difference. In my book, I also talk about having the different kind of body armor. I suggest having both, having concealable soft panel body armor and a vest where you have more options, where you could have a rifle plate, where you have the possibility of attaching pouches and so on. I think it makes sense to have both. Again, here is where people start with, you're thinking you're going to be using that. You know what? Hopefully you never will. But look at what's happening right now in Ukraine. They're handing over guns to people that never fired a gun before in their lives. And I mean, I'll take that gun any day. Even if I have no training, I'll take it any day over being unarmed. But it also has to be said that the advantage of having training is huge. I mean, the difference is massive. If you have an armed population that's also trained in using said firearms, you're looking at a country like Switzerland. And yes, nothing is perfect. I'm sure Switzerland, I have one of my viewers in the channel from Switzerland. Oh, you don't know how bad it is here. Dude, you don't know how bad it is in the rest of the world if you think that Switzerland is bad. But one of the things that always caught my attention is the idea, how advanced they are in terms of civic duty responsibilities. You are a citizen, you have a gun, you know how to use it, and not only that, you're trusted to have that gun not in some barrack, in some armory, but in your house. This means that you're trusted way more than in some of these horrible, it's the complete opposite of being in one of these dictatorships that you're not allowed to own any gun at all. While on really advanced societies where they've reached a level of freedom and quality of life, the gun, you use it for your training and you take it back home, which makes perfect sense, by the way. Notice that Switzerland was a country that was avoided in World War II. And there's the argument, oh, that's where the money was. Sure, but you know what? Switzerland dropped planes, both for the United States and from Germany. They shot both. Anyone that crossed into their territory was was going into a country where they were not welcome. And they shot those down and they shot back. And they suffered casualties as well. Look into that. It's quite interesting. But back to this idea of an armed society is a civilized society and it's a free society. We're seeing it right now. Right, along with, I strongly advise having the rest of the stuff we often talk about. A gas mask these days so politicized. This is a real gas mask. This is a kind of thing that will keep you alive when there's literally a weapon in the air, right? You're not going to be using a piece of cloth to stop that. But all of this stuff, it goes towards the same thing of a citizen that has capabilities. The more of these you have, the more of a free society you will live in. Not just because of foreign attacks or invasion, but because of domestic enemies as well. And this is a rising concern, especially these days. We're seeing more and more authoritarian rising, even in countries where you thought it would never happen. Look at what's happening in Canada, with the Freedom Convoy. I mean, man, look at what's happening in the United States. They redefine what a terrorist is. You have an opinion different, you're a terrorist. This is insane, and they have to do a video dedicated to this exclusively, but in the middle of the midst of what's going on in Ukraine, you have now that if you are spreading misinformation, you are a terrorist. And misinformation is whatever the fuck we say it is. It is crazy, but that's not in Ukraine, that's not Russia, that is in the United States right now. On paper, you're labeled as a terrorist because of your different opinion. In the United States, and in YouTube, which I'm using right now, in YouTube, a dictator like Putin is allowed to have his own propaganda platform, which is Russian television. We're not talking about freedom of speech here. We're talking about a dictator attacking a sovereign nation without any kind of provocation, and he's allowed to spread insane propaganda through this channel, through YouTube, while channels like my own, we have to be careful of using carefully selected words as to not offend YouTube and end up with a strike or our channel's completely removed. How insane is this? How far have we gone down this insanity that I have to be worried about not getting my channel canceled, but Vladimir Putin can have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to the Russian propaganda in the middle of a damn war? This is like being the guy that is printing the propaganda for a Nazi regime and dropping it in invaded countries and saying, "Oh, I'm just printing this. I just got this handed over by a nice guy with an SS uniform, and I'm just doing my job, and I'm just printing." No, you're a damn collaborator. You're a collaborator in the middle of a war. Okay, but this goes just to show how important it is to reassure life and liberty, and these are important for that. And even if you're lucky that you don't end up using them, even more so, it's a passive mechanism as well, in terms of you live in a free society, you have your firearms for defending your life and liberty. Okay, maybe you will not use your rifle in war against a foreign enemy or a domestic, but it's still doing its job of reassuring freedom in said country. You are free because you have these options available to you. Okay, guys, and that's just part of it. But this is something that was asked in my Spanish channel. By the way, for those of you guys that don't know, I have an entire Spanish YouTube channel with 210,000 subscribers, so it's fairly popular among people that have gone through the same things I've gone through in Argentina and Latin America, and folks like that appreciate this kind of material, which is available in this channel as well for quite some time. So guys, that's gonna be all for now. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell button, because YouTube is definitely not a friend here and will not send notifications of videos unless you click on those. And if you're interested in this sort of stuff, you have my books available there below in Amazon. Guys, have an awesome day. See you in the next one. Take care.